Hello, and welcome to Page Turners, a Spook-ish podcast.
Ooh.
Join us this spooky season as we interrupt our regular broadcasting to bring you weekly episodes of a partially pants-shitting substance, spooky books, and even spookier films. It'll work roughly the same as our normal episodes, just with creepier content. Fair warning though, there'll still be spoilers. That's Amy.
And that's Liv. Ooh. So, Liv, how are you?
So kind of you to ask. I'm very well. I'm currently recording this from my mum and dad's house.
I love that. We're a multi-destination podcast now.
I know, but you wouldn't be able to tell because I'm actually in San Francisco.
You're in San Francisco. I'm in some kind of woods with the Northern Lights behind me.
You've been stuck there for a few weeks now since the
I
ritual.
know. Ever since the ritual, I don't think I'm getting out of here. I think I'm stuck.
Are you, in fact, sacrificing others to this god as well? Okay. Well,
Yeah, I'm all in now.
God forbid a girl has hobbies.
What's that? I know. Shoot me. What can I say? Yeah, I've got other things going on aside from the podcast.
Ugh. Which I take personal offense to. So
I've actually just finished work, so I hope I don't talk about anything really boring, thinking that I'm still in a work call, because I've just had about 4 or 5 calls back to back before this one.
I would say that our chats are grossly unprofessional. So I think
good.
you'll be fine.
Perfect.
Yeah, no, I'm not bad. I'm not bad. What have we done? We spent the weekend with some friends, which was very nice. Went to Temple Newsome, which is like an estate. My friend Harriet made us all a little picnic, which was very nice.
Aww.
It was a very adult picnic because there was booze and it was done really nicely. We're bringing a couple of bottles and it's going to be lots of food and everything like that. And she'd made this amazing salad that I will make for you that was strawberry, feta, watermelon, and mint.
Oh, that sounds delicious. Was there a little drizzle of balsamic glaze on there?
There was not, but I think it was because we weren't sure how well it would travel.
Oh, fair.
I can definitely see a little balsamic on that for sure. Yeah.
Stunning.
But other than that, that's all I've been up to. Like I said, we're at my mum and dad's. We're going home after this.
Busy lady.
Yeah, it was my mum and dad's wedding anniversary yesterday. They were married 35 years.
Yay! Congratulations. What is that? What's the traditional gift for 35?
Coral.
Oh.
But since obviously the seas and the coral is dying, it's like I read a thing that was like, it's now the colour coral. It could be fun. It could be the colour coral.
Yeah.
The modern is jade. So again, not cheap.
Not cheap.
Yeah. But we just took them out to one of our favourite restaurants in Durham.
I bet that's what they would want, way more than something coral coloured.
Yeah, eating out for free? Are you kidding me? With retirees, they loved it.
I love it.
What have you been up to?
Cool. Well, we are preparing to go to York. So we've got our trip to York on Friday, woohoo, for Rudy's dad, John. Big shout out to John today. He's 60 years old. Happy birthday, John.
Happy birthday, John. Woo woo.
Yes, we've got a nice family weekend planned. And the Food and Drink Festival is happening at the time when we are there. I'm telling you this in case you are aware of it and have ever been and enjoyed it.
Yep.
So yeah, we've got some fun things. We've got a taste trail booked. We're going to go around and try like 6 different dishes from different restaurants and got lots of lovely stalls to walk through. Yeah, just sounds like a great time.
That is good, and especially with York, from what I remember of the Food and Drink Festival, because it seemed to happen more than once a year. I will say that.
Oh,
we would just walk into the centre and it would be like, "Is this happening again?" But it was always great. You know, there was hodgepodge of vendors, way more than there is at the Saturday market in Falkirk. Yeah, and they always do like really interesting things. Like they did, I got some pigeon from there once, some pigeon burgers.
Ooh.
So yeah, when I was a poor student, you know, living on the bread line.
Living on the pigeons. Love that. Oh, nice. Well, I think the first night we're going to try some of the pubs because there's been lots of really nice traditional English pubs that we want to give a go, including the most haunted pub in the UK. Ooh.
They definitely don't all claim to be the most haunted pub in the UK.
I love how far like York seems to really go in on spookiness and ghosts. You love it. Got a lot of ghost walks as well going on that we've looked into.
And they're pretty good as well. We did a
Right.
few. I would highly recommend there's a shop that sells little ghosts that I think you would love.
Yes, I saw
Yeah.
that. Is it the ghost dispensary? I think there's two now. They've opened another one because it's like queued out the door.
Absolutely, yeah. Then
Yeah.
maybe if you get one, you should bring it on the podcast next week.
I will. I know for a fact that my brother-in-law and his partner, so Ewan and Josh, shout out Ewan and Josh, have got one. So they won't want to wait in the queue. They have their little ghosty. I saw it
That's
in
fair.
their pride of place in their house. But we will definitely queue and get ourselves a little ghost friend.
Are you going to be going to Betty's?
I don't know what that is.
Betty's is there's only about 5 of them in the UK. They're solely Yorkshire based, and they are a tea room.
Oh, maybe I do know what that is. Maybe Laura's listening to this and saying, I recommended that to you. It's on the list. Laura did recommend a tea room that you had to you couldn't, is that right? You can't book it. You have to queue to get in.
I think, and I don't know, Laura can obviously mention in the comments if we are wrong. I think you can book if there's a certain amount of you, or like maybe if you've also got some sort of mayoral connections, maybe then you can book. But yeah, it's a line out the door jobby.
Yeah, no, that sounds delightful. Love
But
an
if,
afternoon tea.
but if you go early enough, so if you go at like 8:30, which is very early, but you don't generally have to queue, you can get straight in.
Nice.
And it is
Breakfast
to die
options.
for. Oh, I mean, everything you could think of. You can have cake, you can have breakfast, it's like they're a full working, they make their own bread, they make their own like cakes and
Oh my
everything.
goodness.
And there's a little shop as well. So if you don't actually get in to the tea room, you don't want to go to the tea room, you can just nip into the door.
That sounds delightful.
But
Yes.
if you go, you have to, and I'm hoping Laura agrees with me here, one of you has to order a side of cinnamon toast.
Oh, that sounds delightful.
You will never, as I say, sleep again. I don't know why.
It's a threat.
You will never find it better than it is. You might find maybe somewhere in America, I'm sure, but like
whatever, we're not interested in that right now.
In the UK, you will never find better cinnamon toast. I haven't found better cinnamon toast than Betty's.
Right. Okay. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna order a portion and I'm gonna tell you what I think about that if we get a table.
And their hot chocolate as well.
Oh, I love a hot chocolate.
Yeah, honestly, it's
wait.
they do incredible. Yeah, sorry, right. This is no longer a book podcast. This is a Betty's podcast.
This is now a York tourism board has hired us to make a podcast for them. I can see that being a good one.
Oh, well, it's better than some of the ones we've suggested for sure. What else do we normally do? Oh, what are you currently reading?
I am currently reading it. I'm being a big girl. I am reading it. I'm just taking my time because I can only read it at certain times of the day. Because I'm scared. And when Rory is in, if Rory's out, I'm like, nah, no chance. Not reading it now. It is called Incidents Around the House by Josh Mallerman. And it is, I think, up there with one of the most, if not the most, scary book I have ever read.
Yeah, you messaged me, I think when you maybe just started reading it, you sent me a little snippet of it and nope.
No, thank you. It's really interesting. It is told from the point of view of an 8-year-old little girl. There is no punctuation for dialogue at all. So you do need to sort of get into the flow of it a little bit. But it's very much deliberately done so that you can experience what a child would experience going through this horrific situation. And it is about this entity, I guess you could say, called her other mummy, lives in her wardrobe. It's genius the way that he writes it. It is not the kind of story where the child is telling people in her life that something horrifying is happening and they don't believe her because, and this is not a spoiler because I think it happens within maybe a chapter or two, the adults very much see the creature as well. So could fall into that trap of, oh no, we don't believe you. Don't be silly. Just go to sleep and you'll be fine. Yeah, we're leaving the house, running away, and it's still coming after us. So
That's really refreshing as well, because I think we've spoken about that in our films specifically, but to have a child be so much easierly brushed off than an adult, sometimes that's really annoying. We, as an audience, we're like, come on, just to suspend disbelief for someone you love for a moment here. But yeah, no, I mean, a child, I think I would find a child harder to believe, but at the very least, at least they've cut the chase and been like, no, everyone's seen the entity, we know it exists, get the fuck out.
Yes, and it's really interesting how he describes it, because he doesn't fully ever describe it. He gives us little hints, but we almost, it's worse in your head than what he could put on page, and I think he appreciates that. So good.
Clearly a horror fan himself. We've spoken a lot about the less you see the monster, the scarier it is. Like, as you've just said, you fill in your own.
Yeah, creepy. But recommend if you do like horror, especially if you like It by Stephen King, because it has the same kind of entity, and that the entity can change into different people, into objects, into animals. So you think you're talking to someone that you love and that you know, and then, oh no, it's not them. It's mimicking them.
No, I'm out.
But yeah, what are you reading? Something wholesome and lovely?
Oh, I mean, something sort of just easy reading. And so I'm 2 books on from when we last spoke. I'm on book 6 of The Broken Kingdoms by L.J. Andrews, Dance of Kings and Thieves. So I'm on the end of the second trilogy. And
how are you finding it now?
Yeah. Hey, weirdly though, the second book in the trilogy was better than the first.
Oh.
I mean, do I think it was, or did I just sort of read it through some sort of state of delirium? I'm not entirely sure. But maybe I'll take that back at some point. But you've got a couple and they were pulled apart and they knew each other as children, and then one of them's a hidden queen. And now they're, at the very least, they admit their feelings for one another in book 1. We're not waiting until book 3 for some sort of tepid sex scene. The sex scenes are all right. They're not graphic, but they're not closed door. I'm not really getting the payout that I think these books should be able to provide, but I'm just they're easy reading, and it means I don't really have to think about what's next. It's like, oh, what's next? Oh, it's book 7. So yeah, not
like
bad.
that sometimes. Yeah, I like that too. You've got the characters, you know the world, everything's a bit more established. You can just kind of get into it and switch your brain off for a bit.
And while we're reading quite specific books, it's nice to have books that I can just set and forget and then be like, I've got to read this now. Then I can just dip back in and be like, oh, what happened? Oh, yeah, this is what's happening.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Speaking of which.
Okay, Liv, what are we reading this week? What have we read this week?
We don't ever get that right, do we? We either need to ask it in present tense or past.
That's what, I'll go with both.
This week, we have read The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore by Laurie Gilmore. And I think it's safe to say that Amy thinks that this book or this episode will be the one that just destroys this podcast.
We started off, this is my issue, okay. We started off when we decided to make this podcast that we said, we sat together in the wine library in Falkirk and had a very professional planning meeting.
Yep.
That we would never choose to read books that we know we didn't like, or we wouldn't like, I should say.
Yep.
Because it wouldn't make great content. It wouldn't be the kind of thing that we would personally want to do, to rip apart an author and a book, because we understand how much work goes into it. And then I feel like we're kind of going back on that right now, because we didn't really, well, I think that's maybe unfair for me to say but I didn't really enjoy the first one in this series. And I chose to read the second one. And not to jump the gun, but I didn't enjoy this one either. So I feel like I'm going back on what I said.
But look, you're managing expectations. You're setting your stall out. You're letting people know. I then feel like I maybe have to tamper, potentially, or else we are just going to pull this apart.
Let's see how we go.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
So episode 5 was the Pumpkin Spice Cafe. Yeah, there's also, guys, the Patreon. we also have a little unedited sex scene chat where because the sex is pretty graphic. I'd say like semi-graphic. We're looking at maybe 3 to 4 little chilies.
It's
for
not
this.
bad. It's not bad.
It's not. So, maybe, there's one on our Patreon. Go and have a look. You can pay £2 a month to pay for
Nicely done.
our Christmas do or something. I don't know.
Mm.
I don't know what we're going to do with 30 pence. But yeah, anyway. Yeah, so it's set back again in Dream Harbour. Very, very similar vibes. We get the same cast of characters. We get a little bit more from certain characters that exist perhaps more in the closer world of our female main character. We get a few new characters who are outside of Dream Harbour. Basically, yeah. So if you have read the Pumpkin Spice Cafe and you haven't read the Cinnamon Bun Bookstore, we are following Noah.
Yes.
And
Hazel.
I nearly said Alice, and I don't know why. Memorable names, guys, memorable names. Yeah, so Hazel, I thought she owned the fucking bookshop. That was the most egregious thing for me. That's a lie. I'm sorry.
I think they said that no, I'm sure she didn't say that. Maybe I just hadn't read it closely enough. I thought she owned the bookstore as well.
Yeah. Well, it turns out she doesn't, guys. She just works there for someone's rich daughter who he bought her the bookshop, and then Hazel just gets apparently she was interested, and then she was sort of like, man, every few years she comes along and she's like, I want to change things, and she's like, okay. But
can I just ask though, why? Why is that the plot? Why is that in the plot that she doesn't own it? Is that so that she can go traveling and get 2 weeks off? Or is that to show that she doesn't have any control over her life? Because there's a comment that this owner comes and changes the name of the bookstore whenever she gets bored. And what's the point? I just feel like what was the point of that? But anyway, yes.
That's really interesting insight though, like the idea that because I think there's a big heavy theme throughout this book that you and I are not very happy about, is that basically Hazel is counting down. So it's in September, it's set. Well, it's the end of the summer, apparently.
It's the end of, I think when does it, it finishes in Thanksgiving or Christmas.
We get a jump time forward, don't we, or something? I'm not sure. But yeah, no, we've got about 2 months that this book spans across, and Hazel is counting down to her 30th birthday, where, of course, we know that on a woman's 30th birthday, she becomes redundant, a husk, useless, her life is over, and she may as well just be dead.
May as well. She may as well. If she's not married with children by the time she's 30, just give it up. Just give up.
I would say, at the very least, she doesn't say, I should be married and I should have children. That's not one of the things that I felt at least coming across. But it did definitely feel there was that underlying of like, my life is over, or she was having a midlife crisis at 29.
Yeah, and everybody seemed to be kind of in on it. No one really, there was a few mentions of, that's not old, don't worry, but nobody was just like, give yourself a shake, Hazel. You're going to be 30. It's not the end of the world.
Yeah, and I should say, Amy and I both have a vested interest as women over 30. That our lives are not over. We started a fucking podcast, for God's sake.
Exactly. So much going on.
That's all Hazel needs to know. Hazel needs to do is start her own fucking podcast. But yeah. So the main premise of the book, the reason our characters are brought together, a la the cafe in Pumpkin Spice Cafe is potentially going to get robbed, and the guy is helping her find the mystery. Is the mystery in this one, which is just the fucking worst mystery ever.
It's not even a mystery. Why is it even a mystery in it?
Yeah. So suspend disbelief when we tell you that this is the main focus of the plot, guys. So she finds a book one day that has been dog-eared or highlighted in a certain section, which has a sort of a text from a book that is something that she can do in Dream Harbour, sort of like I want to live in my last summer of my 20s, but in a town in the middle of Bumfuckistan.
Yeah, it's like a kind of bucket list, like a 20s bucket list. That or like 30 things to do before you're 30. You know how you see these sort of, I don't know, sometimes it's like an image or it's a list that you might see online. You should do this before you turn 30, which we'll come to all that in a minute. Yeah, that is the premise.
Yep.
And that's it.
And she can't possibly do any of these things alone and find fulfillment in herself. She has to do it with the hunky out-of-towner who has fancied her since day one.
Right. And the things that I don't even want, we won't give it away who's leaving these little clues in the books for her yet. We'll let, that sparkling plot point, keep talk about that later.
Because believe
but
us, you won't figure it out.
not at all.
Sorry, go on.
Not at all. What is it? It's like ride a Ferris wheel.
Yep. Go to the beach.
Go to the beach. What's another one? Go on a boat.
Oh yeah, go on a boat. Yeah, I was gonna say, I don't even remember.
Basic things that you could absolutely do by yourself.
But also, that is on no one's list of 30 things to do before you're 30.
No.
I mean,
And none of it is to enrich her at all. I mean, maybe the Ferris wheel a little bit because she's scared of Ferris wheels. So it's maybe overcome this before you turn 30 and face your fears, whatever. But it's nothing really that's going to enrich her life, is it? Go to the beach.
no.
Right.
Yeah.
Go on a boat. Why?
Also, go to the beach. She lives in Dream Harbour that has a beach.
Yeah. How many times has she been to the beach?
Right?
Why is that something on the list? It gets worse when you find out who's written and left these clues, can I just say, of how vague and pointless the little challenges, and I use that term so loosely, are.
Yeah. And what I would say is the obvious sort of thing that you think it is you think it's Noah, you think it's our male main character, using it as excuses to spend time with her, to have little dates with her. That would be better than who it actually fucking is.
That would be so much better.
So
so much better.
That would have redeemed the book, even though it's very obvious, but it doesn't have to be difficult to figure out.
No, it doesn't have to be difficult to figure out at all. Do we want to discuss who it is? That we want to go straight to that point and talk about who it is, or do you want to wait?
Let's wait, because I'm sure everyone's biting their nails trying to figure it out.
Oh, you won't figure it out. Even when you read the whole book, you won't get it.
I mean, look, you might figure it out if you've guessed everybody else first.
And everybody else has spoken to her about the clues and said, oh, this is so unusual. I don't know who did this. There's only one person that doesn't do that.
And how specific are these passages in this book?
Oh my goodness. I know. It might as well just say, highlight the part that says, go to Dream Harbour Beach. Like, that's how specific it might as well be.
It is a weak premise to bring two people together. I think it's hard not to compare between the two, of course, so we are going to be doing that, I'm afraid, but the premise for the Pumpkin Spice Cafe is so much stronger, and I never thought I would ever be able to say that.
No, you could only compare that favourably to this one.
Yeah. The Cinnamon Bun Bookstore makes the Pumpkin Spice Cafe look like a work of literary fiction.
It really does. It really does. Okay, so Noah is already in love with Hazel.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously thinking to himself, oh, it's just lust, and like, here's your favourite bit.
I forgot that. He's a player.
He's a player, guys. He's a player, and goes through all the bachelorette parties that come through town, and
who's having their bachelorette party at their hen do, as we say in the UK, in Dream Harbour.
Hey, the plot of the first book was that his original girlfriend, the
I know, why is there so many of them? There's so many of them. It's like Marbella or Vegas. Like, come on down to Dream Harbour. Come on.
Hey,
anyway,
half their tourism is at least built on how many hen dos go there. So it should also mention that, just in case you guys forgot this plot point, Hazel is the daughter of the mayor who makes decisions for the town based on the dreams that he has.
No, not the dreams. Not the mayor with the dreams. Oh, what is that? It's just annoying. So irritating. And it got mentioned several times in this one.
Yeah, I was trying to link it back to Gilmore Girls and the sort of the mayor of the town, but it's not. Sandy isn't the mayor, is he? Isn't he like I want to say the unelected war boss of the town, but
Yeah.
people write in and tell us how wrong we are. But
I haven't started my seasonal rewatch, so I get away with it by saying that. I haven't started it yet.
and I think I can be forgiven having watched 22 episodes and not knowing anything about the plot of the characters. So yeah, I was trying to remember that, and I just think I don't think even Sandy, who is a bit of a like a busybody, that's how I would describe him. He doesn't even base his things on dreams, or there's nothing that ridiculous that or that out there that I could compare this to that where this has been dreamed up. But yeah.
Why is this person in charge? Why is this town letting this person make decisions based on their dreams? What? Because it's called Dream Harbour.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is.
What came first, the name or this person?
I thought you were going to say the chicken or the egg, and I was like, Amy, now is not the time to get philosophical. I know this book hasn't challenged you in any way, but now is not the time.
I just need to. I need to do it. Oh, yeah. So that's her dad. Her dad is the mayor.
But then there's this that we get a little bit. Probably the only interesting sort of dynamic that I really wanted to focus on is she's got two dads. Her mother also lives with them, not in a sort of polyamorous relationship,
No.
but her mother and father were never attracted to each other. Were never like her dad's always been gay.
No.
They just
They were
decided
best
to have a
friends, I
baby.
think.
Yeah, they just decided to have a baby because they wanted one, and then they all live in the house together. And she has two siblings that are actually dogs. Oh, how quirky!
Quaint.
But that is a dynamic I would like to have like delved into a little bit. There is no for such a non-stereotypical or a non-traditional parenting or upbringing, it is never mentioned once again.
Never mentioned once.
It is never like, oh, and did that have an impact on you, or what were the benefits to that? You know, like having an extra parent to talk to. The mum, I'm not even sure she gets swept under the rug in favor of the gay dads.
She says one thing. I think she has one line at one meeting, and that's it. The meeting where we conveniently introduce the next character who's just bought the old Christmas tree farm.
Oh my God. Amy, are we reading that for Christmas?
Absolutely fucking not.
Don't worry, guys. I'll work on her. I'll work on her.
Oh no. Instead, we're not going to be that kind of podcast. Maybe, let's see. Maybe we need to maybe as completionists we have to do it. We'll see.
We will be reading these books forever.
Oh no. Oh,
we've gotten a small bit off topic, so apologies. I talked about the dad and the mayor being the mayor under the dreams. Yeah, so essentially Hazel starts doing these things with Noah because he's convinced her that it would be a good thing to do, and she has decided that along with these challenges, she's also going to enter into a casual sexual relationship with Noah, because that's a fun thing to do at 29. And I would agree. That is probably the only thing that would go on a 30 things to do before your 30 list is have casual sex. Like,
absolutely.
That is probably the most realistic thing on the list that isn't even on the list.
You're right, because it's mentioned that she's a serial monogamist. She's had 2 boyfriends or 3 boyfriends, and they've all lasted a year or 2 and ended amicably. And that's been since she was in college, right up until present day. So yeah, absolutely. I can see why that would be a tick off the list before you're 30 type thing.
And also something new for her to explore. But the only way it becomes an interesting sort of like life lesson for her is if it remains as a casual sexual experience. Yes. But of course, the point of this is to shove them together and for them to immediately fall in love. So that doesn't happen. She ends up going, I'm going to be fun and different and quirky, and doing exactly the same thing that she's done. What I
every
would
time
say,
since.
Yeah, exactly. What I would say, at the very least, we are hinted at that the relationships were less than good, right? You know, she was probably...
Oh, she'd never had an orgasm before from penetration.
Yep. Or I'm pretty sure did one of them go like, oh, maybe it didn't go this far. Maybe I'm just thinking it did. Where it's that classic of like, oh, he wouldn't go down on me because it's dirty. It's dirty, isn't it? Are you sure you want to do that? I'm like,
it was something like that. We had a lot of bought shame. Yeah, she was ashamed of herself.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that's not realistic, but I am very, very sick of the trope of people suggesting that cunnilingus is something that we are to consider dirty.
And it's We're not saying that you can't put it in there. We're not saying it's not relatable. We're not saying it's not realistic, as you say. We're just saying, does it have to constantly be reinforced in the books that we read?
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that then obviously they go and have oral sex and she's like, oh my God, the pleasure's unbelievable, it's unbearable. Ah! And then she has the
It's
most
incendiary.
yeah. Oh yeah. He touches her core with his tongue.
Oh, yeah. Yuck.
Yeah, but it just gets a bit much after a while. And I found that there were some tropes in this that were getting a bit tired, but there aren't beloved tropes, things like that sort of thing that aren't, are just a bit meh. Such as, Amy, why does it always take a man to get the woman to realise she's sexy? Why can't she figure it out herself?
Why can't she figure it out on her own? I know.
Exactly.
There's a recurring, I wouldn't even call it plot, but there's a recurring commentary around her underwear, the fact that she wears cotton panties.
Oh my God, that is even a separate plot point that I have here.
Okay, sorry. Right, we can combine the two then. So she wears comfortable underwear.
Yep.
Fine. And he loves that because he's not like other guys.
That's it. That's it.
Right?
Oh,
He doesn't
yeah.
expect her to be in full crotchless panty situation to just go about her day in a bookstore. He's fine with her wearing cotton pants. Lucky lady. Why is the bar so low, Liv? Please tell me this.
That's it. I think the problem with this is neither of you nor I, we don't disagree with the fact that cotton pants can't be sexy. But that's the thing. It's almost as if the author is trying to be original to find something to be, oh, the guy's a green flag because he loves cotton pants.
Exactly. There was so much of that, so much of look at the green flag, look at this green flag, look at that green flag. You're like, that's just a human being. That's just a human being who's got respect for the person that they're in a relationship with. Why are we congratulating him on the fact that he's happy with her underwear choices?
Every time, just you're so right. It was mentioned the fact that it was cotton, and I hate cotton panties.
Me too.
Just say pants. Just say pants. Why is it such a shock that cotton panties are sexy? Yeah.
But he couldn't just comment on it once that he liked it in his POV. He almost had to fetishize it. Like he had to comment on it all the time. And it was like, this does something to me. Like, what? Just what?
But
why is it something you're even noticing that much?
So true. It is, you're right, it's the fetishizing, and it's his own disbelief that something is sexy that shouldn't be sexy. Like, he went as far to call them everything but granny panties.
He did.
But that we know that that's what they mean. That's what you're meant to be saying. Like, but fuck off. This is a novel that screams that it's a feminist novel, but is anything but.
Anything but. What the message is that obviously if you don't wear lacy underwear, then you aren't going to be sexy. However, you might be lucky enough to find someone like Noah who finds you sexy despite you wearing cotton underwear. Oh, lucky me.
But and then at times so there's that obviously that it could have definitely appeared, but then maybe you could think it to be like she's trying to revolutionize cotton pants, but there's no need to because no one is out there going, oh my God, cotton pants on women, disgusting.
Yeah, exactly. Placards, no more cotton pants. Like panties, I will go. I'm with you. I'm not happy with that use of that choice of word. But yeah, that just wound me up. And it was mentioned too many times. This can't be his personality. This can't be the green flag here. Come on. Let's set the bar higher.
Let's, in fact, talk about Noah's personality. What is a real hurdle for Hazel to get over is that Noah is, how old, Amy? How old is Noah? Sorry?
He is 25.
Oh, he's so infantile and young.
Exactly. Ugh. She's a cradle snatcher. Disgusting.
She describes herself as that after they first kissed, or something like that.
She does.
Yeah.
I think she calls herself, I can't remember. I would need to go back and have a look. But she definitely says something derogatory about herself because she kissed a 25-year-old.
It's not like she's kissing a 16-year-old. She's not a paedophile.
Exactly. I know. Oh, here we go. Sorry. No, you cannot be 25. God, now I'm a lecherous old lady.
You are 4 years older than him.
Exactly.
I want to think that it's satirical, that this novel,
Mm.
that this book is satirical,
Mm.
and that she's saying the things like the cotton panties because, of course, people would find them sexy. Of course, nobody's not going to be like, oh, cotton panties, or like, of course, no one thinks she's a paedophile or a lech for kissing someone, and of course,
No.
her life isn't over at 30, but it doesn't come off as that.
It doesn't come off as that, and I don't think everybody reading it is thinking that. And I think it's dangerous that that's the messages that she is putting out there, because this is a huge following. This book, this series of books, has avid readers, and we're not arguing that. We're not saying that you can't read what you want to read, but it's dangerous if you're consuming that message and thinking that there is an issue with a 29-year-old kissing a 25-year-old. Why?
Yeah.
Would we have an issue if the man was 20, 29?
This is it. I've also written here, we champion older male and younger female relationships throughout every genre.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, obviously fantasy's a bad one to describe, because obviously the male always has to be immortal, and he's at least 1,000 years old, and the girl's 18, But
and it's fine.
But that's a problem, and that's something that isn't great, that isn't loved. I don't love that.
No.
But we have to shit on ourselves as women should we have a relationship with a younger man.
Mm-hmm. If we look at so contemporary romance, there's a lot of age gap. If you look at what the age gap is, the man is always older.
And I want to say, oh yeah, she's flipped the script. She did, but it doesn't. There's no resolution that would come off as positive after the fact, and it just.
And the age gap's not big enough. It's not a big enough age gap that anyone thinks that. Yeah. If there was slightly, if she was maybe in her 40s and he was in his 20s, then that might be a more an age gap someone might comment on more. But nobody in the town, in her friendship group, in her family, even Noah himself, nobody else has an issue with this.
Yeah, it just seems like a cheap way to make Hazel hate herself.
Yes. And not enough is done in this book for, in my opinion, to show that Hazel begins to accept and love herself.
Absolutely.
For herself, not because of something that Noah does or says or helps her experience, but just because she learns, I'm fine. Yeah. I wear cotton pants and I fancy a 25-year-old, and that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I've got a lot going in my life. Sure, there's things I probably want to do. There's probably dreams that I haven't thought of, or dreams that I haven't necessarily fulfilled. That's life. But it's okay, and that doesn't mean I can't fulfill them in 2 years' time, or in 5 years' time, or in 10 years' time. Like I said, if this is satirical, and if someone's going to tell us, oh, guys, you're taking it too seriously or whatever, it's like, but where's the payoff? There's not enough of payoff for us to make us, well, there's a reason we think this, right? Like, there's not enough nuance in the text for us to be like, oh, well, that's great because she is, taking the piss or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Okay, next trope. Tell me what you've got.
I think we covered potentially about 3 or 4 in that one.
Okay.
But I do have one more, and that is at the end they go on holiday together and they get married. But the thing that annoys me, I don't necessarily care about the marriage. I mean, actually, we can talk about that as a following trope. Let's talk about the marriage first. You mentioned that annoyed you when we were talking about it.
I think because we've just talked about this, but I think because Hazel sees 30 as this horrifying thing that's coming to her in her life, and that it means that if she hasn't achieved everything she's going to achieve before 30, then what's the point? Nothing good's going to come after that. It's all downhill. And then you think, okay, she's now in a relationship. She's happy. It's been less than a year. All right, they're on holiday. That's a good start. They're out at Dream Harbour. They're doing something different. And then they have to get married in the epilogue, which is only 6 months later. Yeah. So in less than a year, she's going to marry Noah, even though we've just talked about the fact she's a serial monogamist, and she's never been able to have a casual relationship, or she's never had a casual relationship, I should say. And yeah, she still hasn't, because now she's going to get married.
See, for me, I've got nothing wrong with like getting married quickly or whatever. Like,
no,
but
I don't mind that.
I understand where you're coming from though, because you're right. Everything about her character tells us that that's probably not the journey we would want for her.
It just adds nothing, in my opinion. There's nothing wrong with it.
Sorry, I'm charading to Amy. I'm tying it up in a bow. I'm saying that that's the reason. That's the reason it's there. The only reason is to close off that plot point.
Right. I see. I
We
see. You're
don't have
totally right.
we don't have to hear about them again. We don't have to consider that maybe they won't be married, maybe they will. The
You know,
main
though, we talked about this, sorry, but I'm just
Go for it.
thinking about this, just came in my head, it's not on my notes. And I remember this, we spoke about that being something we actually really liked about the Pumpkin Spice Cafe, because at the end of that book, they are not married,
Nope.
do not have children. I don't even think they live together, because I'm pretty sure it's mentioned in this book that they are
It
looking
is.
to live together.
Yep.
And we praised Laurie Gilmore because we said it was actually quite refreshing to see that in a couple, because a lot of the time in an epilogue especially, authors do feel the need to tie it up in a bow, and it has to be okay, what's happening to them now? Well, they're married and she also is pregnant, or she's just found out she's pregnant, or that kind of thing. Whereas in this particular world, in the first book, there was no need for that, so it was
Yeah.
disappointing to have to see that in this one.
She heard us praising her, said, "Hold my beer, fuck those guys. I'm gonna write something that makes them feel sick." No. But
Yeah.
and I want to know, or I want to try and give her some credit in the sense that she's showing us that different relationships move at different speeds.
Fine.
Which
Yeah.
I interpret, which I understand. You and I are both married. Like, we have no
Mhm.
problem with the institution of marriage whatsoever.
Nope.
The problem I have with it is that the reason they get married is because Noah says they're best friends.
Thank you. I was just going to say, it almost feels a little bit like he has to convince her as well. I haven't read it in a while, but I remember there was something like, come on, it'll be an adventure, or
Which is the most romantic probably ever had.
can't quite remember, but there is definitely an element of her being a little bit hesitant to say yes. And then she realizes, like, oh, yeah, it will be an adventure with Noah. Of
No.
course it will
But
be.
for me, it's the best friend thing. It's like, sorry, when have you become best friends? Because it's not happened on the text. Because as far as I'm concerned, they have read together once. He also
Oh,
likes a certain fantasy series or books that, granted, that's fine. Amy is now doing the charade of tying things in a bow for me. Yeah. All they've done is had a couple of conversations that have led to some mind-blowing sex or some orgasms or whatever, because of course it's mind-blowing, and they also read together once or twice. Like,
I was also doing the green flag because that's
oh,
another green flag. He reads fantasy books.
oh my god. She doesn't share enough about herself for me to consider them best friends. Alex is my best friend. I imagine Ruri is yours.
Yes.
Like, I love the idea that you marry your best friend. That's what I always speak to people about, speak to my friends about. Like, that's it. That's what you marry your best friend. But this just is not best friends. Like,
Not best friends. They don't know each other at all.
and
They experience one event together with a storm in the boat where you could think, oh, that's going to pull them together, but they don't have deep and meaningful conversations, in my opinion. I think that Laurie Gilmore tries to suggest they do with the plot point that Noah never finished high school.
yeah, and he ran away from his family business and let his sisters take over. Egast! Women at the helm!
Ugh, disgusting. Are we supposed to think that that's all she's and listen, we're not sitting here suggesting that you need to tell us every single thing and show us every single detail. That's not what we're saying. But what we are saying is 6 months between the last part of the book and being on holiday, and he's proposing, and he not just proposing, can we just point out, he's saying let's get married here, let's get married on holiday. Could we maybe get engaged and then see about the wedding another time?
Yeah,
Seems a little bit fast.
what if I wanted my family here? What if you wanted your family? These two nieces that Noah has this relationship with, and I'm doing the green flag here, because of course
Oh,
he loves children. Surely you'd want them to be part of it. How are you going to go back
yeah,
and explain to your friends and family that you decided to get
I
married, but
know.
included none of them in that decision?
And we know that she's close to her family. She's got a good relationship with her dads. She's got a good relationship with her mum. She's got lots of friends. They're a tight-knit community in Dream Harbour. Exactly. Why are you taking that choice away from her?
Yeah, and them.
Um,
Look, I'm not saying they have a right to be involved in that relationship, but I do feel like it's a little shitty. We're
I
married, we
think it's
don't
a
have to
little
do anything.
shitty.
Ha ha ha, you know? Yeah, I can't imagine that conversation goes over well with these fictional characters that don't actually exist.
I was disappointed in the proposal element of it. I was looking forward to them just being on holiday in the Maldives, getting on with each other, having a good time, reading a books. I just having a nice relationship, a nice healthy relationship. It felt like it had to be shoehorned in there. It's just, oh look, they're engaged. Oh look, they're going to get married. It's like,
And is there a chance that the next one she'll be pregnant already?
well, I think there might well be because there's a lot of mention of how good he is with children, how sexy she finds it that he's good with kids, and like she loves
Mm,
watching him with kids. And so I think that there's been a couple of hints that they are going to be the traditional couple.
yeah. Well, that's a
Mm,
shame, isn't it? Should we move on to character and finally reveal who's leaving the
let's do it.
notes? Character it is.
So let's start with our leading lady, Hazel. Hazel
Hazel.
Kelly.
I was going to say, does she have a last name? I don't remember it.
She does. She has a middle name. It's Rainbow.
Oh yes, she does. That's actually
Mhm.
part of a plot point for some reason.
That's something that's got mentioned quite a few times. So Hazel doesn't own the bookstore, works in the bookstore, enjoys her lot in life for the most part, but feels things are a little bit flat, it's not very interesting. And horror of horrors, she's 29 and she's going to be 30 in a couple of weeks. And she feels that she's always played it safe. She's always been she's done everything that she's expected to do. She does it all by the book. Nothing in her life ever been very exciting or interesting. What a main character. I can't wait to find out more about her.
I would have liked her to maybe have realized. I feel like it didn't play it either way. Like either you leave Dream Harbour because you want to travel and you want to do exciting things, or you realize that there's nothing wrong with being a home bird and being someone who loves to read, or someone that doesn't really have big grand aspersions to travel. Sorry, aspirations to travel, not aspersions. Grand aspirations to travel. You know, and yes, I know that there's a middle ground, but generally in books we find things are heightened for us, right? Especially romantic and especially contemporary romance. Everything is dialed up to 100.
Yeah,
So
no, absolutely.
there's always a polarizing choice between, oh, I'm that country kind of gal, or I'm a big city gal, you know, like.
Mm-hmm.
And she picks neither option here, which confuses me. And yeah, it never seems to really. She doesn't have a problem with the fact that she's lived in Dream Harbour her whole life, but she wants to travel. It sort of just seems as if she's actually got no problems, and
She's got no
there's
problems.
actually nothing to solve. So there,
There's nothing to solve. No, there's nothing to solve. It doesn't sound. I mean, I actually thought when she didn't own the bookstore that maybe that was an aspiration of hers to own the bookstore, and she
Mhm.
was going to maybe look into that as an option, or maybe she was going to realize, you know what? I don't want to work at this bookstore anymore. I want to give it up and I want to go and do something else.
Yeah,
I've been stuck in a rut. I've been kind of been carried along by the tide a little bit here, and I want to make my own way in life. Fine.
yeah,
No, she's quite happy working in the bookstore.
yeah, and there's
Okay,
absolutely
good.
nothing wrong with
No,
that.
nothing
But
wrong.
unfortunately, the problem is the book has told us that there's something wrong, and so you and I had to figure out what. Because as far as I'm concerned, I saw nothing other than
I saw nothing.
her impending terror at turning 30.
And I think it's disappointing to read that in a book now. I think we've had so much of that in media from the 90s, the early 2000s. Those what were seen, I think, and came across as sort of feminist works of, rom-coms, romance books, or like TV series where there's maybe an all-female cast, and we think, oh, okay, this is a feminist um, story. Whereas we then have the women who are riddled with anxiety, riddled with insecurities about their age, what they look like, who they date, what their weight's like. And that was okay then. It was disappointing then, but it was understandable of the time. The fact that we're still using that as a plot device in 2024 is just a little bit disappointing because I don't think it says reinforced anymore. I think if we saw that, people would sort of go, don't be silly. You've got plenty of time if you're in your 30s.
Yeah.
You know, we don't reinforce female insecurity now. I'd like to think we try not to.
Well, yeah, there's definitely people that do reinforce female insecurity, and I do definitely think that in things like media and things, I don't think it's any better. It's potentially more called out or less
Exactly.
less accepted, but I definitely think it's
Mm.
still very much there. So I'm not surprised at seeing it, but I am disappointed. And I think basically that's what you were
I'm
trying to say. Like,
disappointed. I'm disappointed that a female author would
it
reinforce it.
the plot does come off as if it's a man writing a woman, which I feel really bad for saying that, but
I know.
there's I don't think there's anything necessarily wrong with our female character. Like she has quite solid potential, but I just think it's done the wrong way, and it takes our female main character and makes her life and her plot all around the man.
There's not enough about her to really feel connected to her at all, in my opinion. I found
Mm.
it even difficult to picture what she looked like.
Yeah. Did you get the sense that she was bigger than like an average sort of skinny girl? Like I got the
Yeah.
fact that we were trying
Thought
to
she might be plus sized. Yeah, I thought that.
but it was never come out and said. Like it's that thing of like there's no polarizing either way. Like either tell us she's a curvy girl and there's nothing wrong with that, fantastic, build that up, build her up, fine, she's got body confidence issues, but then she comes into her own and she thinks she's sexy, but it's all done at the behest of the man.
Mm. Hmm.
She couldn't.
Of course, yeah. Her value is only in what Noah thinks.
Ugh.
Noah thinks she's sexy and therefore she feels sexy. She feels powerful because she gives Noah a blowjob and he enjoys it. That is a plot device.
And I'm not saying that, that isn't something that could happen, but I want more. I want more
Want
about
more.
her, taking her own power and then using it outside and then being like you said, I thought a plot point was going to be that she bought the bookstore or she wanted to, I don't know, I'm trying to think of things that are relatable in terms of books, like she wanted, she doesn't want to read books anymore, she wants to write books as well, and she
But she didn't even seem like, I mean, there was a couple of mentions of she takes a book with her everywhere she goes.
mm,
Because when she went to visit Noah at the restaurant, she said something along the lines of, I bring a book with me in case the sexy fisherman that I'm here to see needs some time before he can talk to me, or something like that. Apart from that, do we even really know how much she loves reading? She loves books. Does she like writing? Does she like to, does she like to host authors? Does she listen to podcasts? Does she do anything else that makes her a reader? Is there anything? And I know we always say it doesn't need to be shoved down our throats, but it kind of does a little bit more than it has been here. We need to have something that
something.
tells us what does she like? What does she feel strongly about? What's she passionate about? I just didn't get that at all.
Because there was nothing to get. I would say, and I don't know if you picked this up, for a sort of a let's contemporary romance spicy book, let's sort of trying to pigeonhole this into a corner. Our protagonist was exceptionally judgy to the book club that comes in. Did you get that
I
feeling
know.
of the fact that
Yes.
they read spicy romance plot, books? And
Yeah. And they're nosy and they try and romanticize everybody else's life.
there was
Yeah.
and she never outwardly says anything, and she's never cruel because they're her friends, that's fine. But there was always this like, oh, not the romance books, like I'd never be caught dead in there, or this thing of like embarrassment at what she was reading or whatever. Be empowered. Like when I would have loved maybe a juxtaposition between Noah comes in and he catches her reading the first sort of clue, as it were, in the book, and it's like a sexy sort of book thing, and that's oh, haha, what's you reading about dicks, I don't know, like.
Hmm.
But then after she gives him the blood, or after she feels sexy or whatever, she finds an element to bring that power back by reading those books openly in public. And Noah comes in and he's like, oh yeah, you're reading your whatever sexy book, and she's like, yeah, I'm using it for research or something. Like she owns it. I would have loved something like that, but
Yes.
it just never comes.
Never
And
comes. You're
but
totally
she
right.
but she does thousands of times apparently.
Thousands of times, all over the place.
Yep.
All over the place. Again, fine. If that's your kink, if that's what you're into, go for it. Embrace it. But she's embarrassed right up to the end that she seems to enjoy having sex.
Yeah.
Right, let's chat about Noah then. Mr. Green Flags.
Mr. Green Flags, who's not nearly enough red flags for him to be a problem again. So yeah,
Nothing.
he's
Again, you're totally right. There's not enough for him to be a problem again. It is that lack of courage, I almost feel like, in a way, where it's like, just give us something. Maybe you don't want us to hate him, but make us hate him and then make us love him. Make him do something wrong, and then because it's interesting and it gives him more depth, but then show us how he redeems himself. Redemption's a great character development point. We know that. We've seen it done so masterfully before in so many excellent books. But it's almost as if Laurie doesn't want to even make us dislike him for a second. So he does nothing wrong the whole time, ever.
there's not even a proper third act breakup. Like there's not
There
even
almost was, because I started to highlight it, and then he said, "Oh, actually, no, I'm sorry, I'm being an idiot.
oh
Like, come back."
you're thinking that one is a yeah.
Mhm.
I sort of viewed it more as when you found out who was leaving the notes, that could have been the potential for it. But yeah, but yeah, anyway, sorry, back to Noah. Long story short, with Noah, he is the big city gal who comes to the little town and finds love. Basically, he is a like an heir to a. It's not even an heir, but like it's the only way I can describe it. It's like he was in line to take over his daddy's big business, big
Mhm. Big
fishing business.
seafood.
Yeah, big seafood. That's it. His dad's got the pockets of big seafood. Um, and he didn't want to do that. He didn't want to be stuck behind a
No.
desk. He's clearly got undiagnosed ADHD and he can't do a desk job. He wants to be out there with his hands. So yeah, he runs the boat tours and takes people out fishing in the people that come to Dream Harbour as tourists. But he's also sweet and sensitive because he's found these abandoned huts and he's started to redo them illegally by himself.
Do you know what though? He had something going on. He had aspirations. I could
He
get on board with Noah.
he had a hobby. That is safe to say. Yeah.
He did. Why was he more fleshed out than the main female character? She's your main character. And you spend more time getting us to know. I know a little bit about Noah. I know he's got sisters. I know that he feels guilty that he hasn't been there for his family because he ran away because he didn't want to be pigeonholed into this career that wasn't his choice.
And he
He
didn't want to
wants to
live.
do up. Yeah, no,
He,
go on.
sorry, he didn't want to live every day with the disappointment of his father. You know,
Right, okay,
who's
fine. It's
not
been
in,
done 100 times, but fine.
who's also not in any way disappointed with him. But that's fine.
Not
Go.
at all. He's got the little huts, as you say. So he's got aspirations, plans. He's trying to put down roots. So he's got a bit of character development there, in which he's no longer trying to be flighty. He wants to settle down in Dream Harbour. He enjoys living there. There's a lot going on with Noah.
Yeah.
It makes sense. I know a little bit about him. So actually, when it comes to looking at the two characters side by side, he is a better fleshed out character than Hazel is, in my opinion.
And I think that goes with the entire thing that we're talking about, right? He has the full personality, so he's able to lift her up and be like, "What do you mean?" And takes off her glasses and it's, "Oh, you're so sexy," It's
No.
thankfully that never happens, but it may as well.
May as well happen. May as well happen. As you
We
say, there's very little to talk about. There's nothing majorly red flag about him. He's very always just neutral to me. He didn't really do anything to disappoint me or excite me at all. He was just fine. Yeah, he's fine.
let's go over a few of our. We see Logan again from number one.
Yeah.
What's the other last called?
Jeannie.
We see them again. They are
Yeah.
still taking it slow. They might be moving in together. Then you've got the other friend who we're clearly setting up with the guy that owns the pub. That'll be the one after Christmas. So stay tuned for that, guys.
That'll be the spring Easter egg festival hotel
Oh,
or something like
yes.
that.
You know, I was so disappointed there was not a Christmas light festival of holiday cheer and lights and joy and tree lighting and gift
There
wrapping
was
and shit.
nothing. There wasn't even a harvest festival.
There was
It
not.
wasn't even. Can I just say it wasn't even that autumnal, this book.
No, and this I felt so bad after you because I read it in one night, and then I remember you said on the podcast, or the reason you chose to read this last week is because you were like, oh, I want to try and read this one in a more accurate time period, try and see how it feels. And I was just stood there, I'd already read it, and I was like, oh, you're going to be so disappointed. It's literally
And I
nothing.
was.
Yeah,
Nothing. There was a little mention of Halloween and Halloween costumes at one point, but nah.
yeah.
We
But
didn't get a pumpkin carving festival of dreams. A bit disappointed by that.
let's talk about who actually leaves the notes.
Yeah,
And
okay then.
you may reveal after this short drum roll.
Her dad.
Hooray!
Her dad. Her dad's doing it.
But why is he doing it? Did it come to him some way? Did he read it, or did it come to him in a fucking dream?
Came in a dream.
And he decided to do some sort of insulting scavenger hunt because he thinks that his daughter needs to get out. But to be fair, she says something like, do you think I need to get out more or something? And he goes, no, I just thought it would be fun, which is the lamest cop out of something so such an extravagant thing to do to get your daughter to have
To
some
go and sit on the
challenges
beach.
and get fingered on the beach. I mean,
Finger on the
I
beach.
bet he doesn't know that happened when he said he was writing her to go and get fingered. Also, does he know anything about her? It's being well established that she doesn't read romance books, and he leaves all of the clues inside of romance books.
Yeah, and she doesn't like the things he's suggesting. And it's not because she doesn't live a full life. People can have preferences. She
Mm-hmm.
doesn't like Ferris wheels. She doesn't like the beach. Can you not maybe get her to do things that she enjoys?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There is a line between things she enjoys and things that challenge her. I'm sure there'd be that.
Yeah, of course.
You know, oh, have you thought about writing your own story? That could be something you could highlight, and she would get to write a little short story, and maybe she'd be challenged, but she'd get to do something she loved, and you know, maybe that would awaken a dream inside of her. What's a fucking Ferris wheel gonna do? Other than again, provide her as a sexual object for someone else to use.
Yes, because every time she ticks off something from this list that her dad has set up for her, she's kissed, she's fingered,
Good. She's fucked.
they have sex. That's it. That's it. Yeah. So I bet her dad didn't know that was going to happen.
No, no. We should talk about the sort of end of the novel and post essentially Hazel finds out that her dad's been the one getting her to hook up with Noah, but without, you know, him knowing that that's what he's getting to happen. Yeah, so she finds out it's not Noah, but not before she's like, I know what you did, and is like trying to come over as all, I liked it, and he's like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, no idea. I told you. Would you think I'm a complete sociopath? Like I told you that I didn't know about this.
Yeah,
I've been helping you work it out.
I've told you no less than 5 occasions that this is not me. So yeah, she's of course mortified, and that mortification stops her from speaking to him for a week or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
Again, there's no drama here.
No, she's embarrassed, and because she's embarrassed, she decides that she doesn't want to see him because she thinks that he doesn't really like her. He wants things to stay casual, even although we know at this point that that's not true. It is so obvious that he really loves her. But yeah, the biggest conflict is that she's embarrassed.
Yeah, and this is my worst kind of trope. Not what I would call miscommunication, because I think we've spoken about this before. I don't mind miscommunication if it's a genuine miscommunication. Most of the time, miscommunication tropes, in fact, get misdescribed. I don't know if that's a word. Misdescribed as people just not communicating. The fact that both of them are like, oh, I've fallen in love with him/her, and I've decided not to tell him/her because what could happen? We're just banging. That's what it is. It's like, what's the worst that's going to happen? They're going to stop banging.
It became so repetitive. It just became, because there was it flipped POV, didn't it? It went from Hazel to Noah, not consistently. It wasn't as if every other chapter it swapped or anything like that, but it just became so repetitive that their internal monologue was just, I like him, but he doesn't like me. I love her, but she just wants things to stay casual. Have you asked each other what you want from the relationship? Have you at any point just said, listen, I've got feelings for you now. Do you want this just to remain casual sex? In which case, fine, that's what we signed up for. Or would you want to go for a drink or something to eat and see how this goes? That's all you've got to do.
And then have sex.
And then have sex. Exactly. And as you say, what's the worst that could happen? They say, nah, I'd actually just prefer it to stay casual. I'm enjoying things as they are right now. All right, fine.
And God forbid the female makes a stand. How good would that be? She's like, actually, I'm in love with you. I'm happy to keep having casual sex. Or at least, at the very least, I like you. I'm going to put that out there so you know how I feel. And when you
I'm going to be
eventually
the brave
realize, or when you or saying something powerful like, when you eventually realize that I am the one for you, or I'm, great and worth more than casual sex, you can come to me, and
Love
say
it.
that.
Even that alone would have been 10 times better than what we get, because what we get is essentially another cop out where they just don't tell each other until she is embarrassed by it not being him, and he then feels he needs to plan a grand romantic gesture to win her back.
Yeah. And I will admit, I quite liked the romantic gesture. I just didn't like everything that surrounded it. I really enjoyed, basically, he does what everyone thinks he did in the first place, and he uses the books to tell her the story of what's just happened over the last 2 months. I mean, not that she's not lived it, and not that we've not just read it, but yeah, she opens the books and finds a highlighted line. I met a girl this summer. The kiss was incendiary. There's your fave.
There we are.
He could have sworn his entire body had gone up in flames. That's in a different book. He does it in another book. And there's a few. Oh, yeah, here's another one. Will you be my best friend? The fox asked the rabbit. But we're so different, said the rabbit. That's why I like you. No!
Lovely.
You're not best friends. What I will say is he does it 10 times better than her dad, because he does it in a bunch of different genres of books.
He does. And I even like the fact that at the end it isn't a book, it's a diary. And he writes something in the diary like, meet me somewhere at this time on this date. Like, that's quite sweet. I didn't have an issue with the big grand romantic gesture. I actually thought it was quite fitting. It showed that he had a good understanding of what she liked, because as you say, it wasn't just romantic books that he did it with. I haven't got a problem with it.
Yeah. I felt like too much of this was either, like I said, not one or the, it was not one or the other. It was down the middle. It was dry, or spoon feeding us the bits that we should be paying attention to. So especially after the bit where he wrote "Meet me by the water" on the planner, it was, well, holy shit, the grand finale.
We don't need that.
It's the very
intelligent
epitome.
enough.
That's it. Yeah. Show us, don't tell us. We know that this is important. We know that this is the crux of it, and you're trying to be quirky.
We know what's going to happen here. We understand it's going to be the declaration of love between the two of them, that it's not just casual, and that they do want to start a relationship with one another. We're under no illusion that that's going to happen.
Yeah.
Don't worry about it. We're with you. Again, it's nice for him because it develops his character. He has never been in a serious romantic committed relationship before. He has always been about casual sex, casual hookups with people that are not there for any length of time, who are just stopping by for a weekend, all these hen dos that are traipsing through, coming in the boatload to Dream Harbour. So it's a huge development for him to make such a grand romantic gesture. Nothing really for Hazel.
It should be, but it just seems like it doesn't. I think as well, we learn throughout the book that, well, at least that's what I feel like I get, is that he doesn't think he's good enough because he let down his whole family and nobody will ever love him and he doesn't deserve love. Like, Noah's the main character.
Noah's the main character, and Noah Noah reads into things quite a lot, because I didn't get that at any point that his family were disappointed in him and didn't love him and didn't feel he was. They seem like a loving, supportive family.
Yeah, clearly issues with self-worth, but
Which again is fine. And if he overcomes that in the story, then that's great character development. But why are we developing him
yeah, that's it.
so
And
much?
there's no reason that we can't develop them both. I get that. But when one almost comes at the expense of the other, it just makes it yeah, you've got a woman
Or
that's there.
use not even so much use Hazel to better him, but I like in relationships they bring out the best in one another.
Yeah, I think I saw some bits trying to do that with her building him up and making him think that, she doesn't make any comments on the fact that he didn't go to high school, like she doesn't belittle him in any way, and that's
No.
but all I saw from him to her was her realizing that she's sexy because he likes to go down on her, or he thinks she's sexy, that his was worth based, hers was objectivity and aesthetic based. There was no
Yes.
deeper thing for her to find anything out. She just was just like, oh my god, yeah, look how I look. And he was like, I have self-worth issues, I have psychological issues. And she's like, we'll work on them.
But even something as simple as, because in the epilogue they are on holiday.
Hmm.
Even if in the story at any point we understood that Hazel was maybe a workaholic, she doesn't like to take holidays. She feels guilty about taking holidays. She loves her job so much that she puts it before herself a lot of the time. Even that would have been something, because even then she would have done something for herself to improve her life.
Yeah, yeah. And
There's nothing, there's no chat, there's no conflict for her though. There's nothing that she can
I
overcome.
I completely agree. And then on a deeper level, when you're saying, she likes her work too much, she doesn't want to take holidays, there's a control issue there, right? Which then you could link into the fact that Hazel has spent the summer, or whatever, the 2 months before her birthday, allowing someone to plan challenges and dates for her. That's an element of giving up control. You could link it in so beautifully, but yeah, no, it's all about how she looks.
Yeah.
Speaking of the sex, I'm gonna start off at the bat and start off and say the sex was better in Pumpkin Spice Cafe.
I agree. I skipped some of it.
Oh,
Yeah, sorry.
no, do not apologize.
The first sexy scene on the beach was okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, seemed all right. I like the fact there was a lot of conversation around consent. That was quite clear.
yeah,
That was good to see. The rest of it was just a little bit meh. It wasn't bad. I can see why people would think it was quite hot, but I just didn't have any connection to the characters, and I just wasn't really that bothered about them having sex.
yeah.
To be honest.
I found it a little strange that their first time fully banging, they made such a big deal of the fact that they didn't have penetrative sex, which just again reinforces the fact that penetrative sex is the be all and end all. Like, guys, I'm saying it now. This is my stance, Amy. I'm sorry if I'm speaking for you here, but I am. This is the page turner stance on sex. All sex is sex, regardless of whether it's with a cock and a vagina. It's penetrative sex is not just the only sex. Foreplay is sex. Foreplay isn't foreplay. Foreplay is sex. Like, and I feel like she
Yeah.
was trying to do that. But
Do you know what I was just going to say? I actually feel like she was trying to do that. I think there was more time spent on that than anyone else, but then it was undone, unfortunately.
well, I just feel like it would have been so good if they hadn't just kept mentioning, oh, but we didn't go all the way. We didn't have penetrative sex. It's like you're still having sex with him, so like this is still a big deal. So maybe.
I liked it because I thought there was a lot of there was focus on sex and other sex acts, I guess, if we want to just differentiate for the sake of the podcast and
Yeah, of
we're
course.
talking about it. But then we did have to go down the very tired trope of, oh, but the reason penetration isn't something that she's interested in or isn't something that they focused on up to this point is because she's never had an orgasm through penetration. It's like, okay. So if she could, because then they change position and she goes on top and then she does orgasm, now full sex is enough. It just felt a little bit like we're just trying to it's like, yeah. But once we sort this problem out, then
Then
they're having sex.
yeah, then she's gonna love to conform to heteronormative sexual ways. Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Yep.
So I mentioned to you that I think this might be my first ever ick from a book.
Ooh, we've never done an ick.
Oh,
I don't think we've ever had one.
maybe we should do ick of the week and see if one of
I
us can
love
find
that.
an ick.
Right, ick of the week then.
Ick of the week for me was it's so funny that I've highlighted two things on this page because the first one is about he got to her plain cotton panties. He could not explain why these things drove him crazy, but they really did. That is not
Ugh.
the ick of the week. But for me, it's he goes down on her and he says he dug his fingers into her flesh and spread her legs open in front of him like a feast, his own personal treasure. Ugh! Ugh!
Oh no.
The amount of like nautical
Ugh.
references in this book just because
Oh, I know.
like I was expecting his own personal treasure. Arr, you know?
Army hearties.
Yeah. So yeah, that was
Brackets, chest, brackets, treasure chest, brackets, pirates. Get it? Like that's what we were at. Nudge,
Yeah.
nudge, wink, wink. And also, and we've talked about this today, so we're not going to go into it again. His own personal. Why is her vagina anything to do with him?
Yeah, yeah. It's that sort of like sexy element, like you're mine, that possession element. Which, whatever you're into, absolutely. It's just,
Into.
yeah. With this, it would work in other literature, I'm sure, but in this, when we're already losing so much of the female character
Exactly.
because of not because of him or at his expense, but like it does feel like that. So it doesn't sit right. Yeah.
I just ask.
You may.
No, and no. I think we're okay. I just wanted to double check. I just was interested in the scene where he goes down on her. It's told through his point of view.
This one is, but I'm not
Yeah.
sure. This isn't the first time it happens.
And when she goes down on him,
I don't
it's
remember.
her point of view. It'd just be interesting to know how is that told? I don't know. I
Well,
haven't researched it enough.
I think it happens enough times that potentially we maybe get both points of view for both orals, maybe,
Fair.
just to cover all
Okay.
bases, etc. But
Mhm.
yeah, and on that note, I think we finish here. Final thoughts. I know that you obviously started us off strong with the no, you didn't like this, you didn't enjoy this. I will say, whilst obviously we've picked this apart and there's a lot about it that isn't great, there is something that kept me reading. I could have very easily have just DNF'd it and been like, I'm sorry, Amy, I couldn't do it. You're gonna have to tell me what else happens. I don't want to say it's like a car crash and that people drive by very slowly just so they can have a look at what happened, but I think there's something about it that's almost fun to hate.
Yeah. And you know what? Let's to try and think of something positive to say. The setting is quite sweet. The cast of characters is quite comforting. I can see why people would enjoy reading this and using it as a way to kind of escape reality and just there's not really any high stakes at all. And you know what? There are plenty of books that do high stakes really well. So we don't always need to be in a life or death situation for a book to be compelling and fun to read.
Yeah,
And that's okay.
that is okay. You're so right. Amy, would you recommend this to a friend?
No,
No, neither would I. I wouldn't even recommend this to somebody who'd read Pumpkin Spice Cafe.
neither would I. I was just going to say that because I thought, would I recommend it to someone who's read the first book? Probably not, to be honest. No, and I feel like we sit in the fence all the time when we do this section. We always say, yeah, no, I would because people like different books and blah, 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 blah. But that aside, there are other books that do this better.
Yeah,
And
I
that's just
agree.
my opinion.
Do you have any to hand or any in your head that you can think
No,
of?
it's not the kind of books that I would read, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Can you think of any book that potentially has a solid relationship where they make each other better?
So in terms of relationships where they do bring out the best in each other,
Hmm.
if you were looking for something with that dynamic, then Daughter of No Worlds.
Plug for episode whatever.
I loved that relationship.
Yeah.
Max Interius and who's our
Pisana.
main character? Tasana. Beautiful relationship. And they bring out the best and they challenge each other. And there's a lot, understand there's a lot more at stake. And the characters
Yes.
have been through a lot more traumatic things happening in their life. They've been through a war, they've been through, sexual assault, rape. There's been a whole lot going on. But just in terms of actually building the relationship and starting off as kind of friends and then becoming something more, it's really well done in that story.
I agree. I think that's really interesting. In
Just here.
terms of something that you could read that's quite a good romance depiction, that's a bit less, I don't know, a bit less high stakes. I'm trying to think of some contemporary romance that I've read.
I think it's probably fair to say as well, it's not really a genre that we gravitate towards, is it?
No,
So actually,
would we have picked this up if we hadn't have read Pumpkin Spice Cafe? The answer will not surprise you. It's no. It's no. I kind of like sometimes historical romance, so like a duke and someone, that sort of thing. That's not bad. There's a couple of a gay trilogy, I think, that's romance that's a bit more, it's about magic and stuff. It's called The Magpie Lord. I think that's a really interesting depiction of a male relationship. And yeah, it's sexy, but also it's balanced and it can be loving and it can be like, ooh, And
is it wholesome and low stakes like this?
No, but it's much less higher stakes than Tasana and Max. So I feel like that is the
Okay.
middle ground I can provide.
Middle. Nice. I like it.
Maybe The Love Hypothesis by Ali Hazelwood. That's quite a
Do you
good
know?
depiction of two
Yeah.
characters that make each other better.
Do you know
And
Ali Hazelwood's not bad at that actually? Because her STEM series has quite a few characters and couples where they equally bring each other out of their shell and push each other, don't they, into different
yeah,
situations and
yeah,
yeah,
her chess one, Checkmate, I think is pretty good.
checkmate.
I enjoy that. Yeah. Cool, guys. So hopefully those recommendations are okay. If you've read all of those things and you think, what the fuck are you talking about? Then just leave us a comment. Let us know.
Just let us know. You
But
can disagree with us, just please tell us.
yeah, absolutely. We would love to be told we are wrong if it starts a conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Page Turners Pod on TikTok.
Hang
And
on,
on.
don't jump the gun. Don't jump the gun.
Oh,
Please
really?
tell the people what's happening next
Oh,
episode.
I think it's
Come
because
on.
it's because I don't want it to
I
happen.
know you don't want to. I know you don't want to, but you need to tell
Oh,
us.
okay. So we are on film 3 of 4, and I have chosen to watch The Grudge.
Oh, interesting. Okay, so
Ah.
we're not doing a creature feature anymore. We're doing paranormal, supernatural, Japanese
Yes, and
folklore.
just to be clear, we are not watching the original Japanese. We are going to watch the. Would you say it's a Hollywood blockbuster, or would you say it's a bit? Well,
Oh, I think yeah, I think so.
I feel like maybe my only comfort in this film is
Oh.
going to be Sarah Michelle Gellar.
She's good in it. She's really good in it. She's a
Um,
good scream queen in this one.
Excellent. Yeah, so we're gonna watch The Grudge. This is the one I'm least looking forward to. Like right now.
It's hard to say. It's hard to say because I don't think we found, well, but I don't think I have found you a film that really ticks all the horror boxes and really gets you feeling icky yet. So let's see how this one does.
I don't want you to, Amy. This is the whole point. I'm trying to pick films that I might enjoy. Yeah, so we're doing the
You might enjoy
2004.
this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
2004 though. So I mean, we're going again 1 year before The Descent. So that'll be an interesting one, but with a much bigger budget. 10 million, so double The Descent. But it's only 90 minutes, so that's nice.
It's quite actually I think you'll quite enjoy the story, to be honest. It is set in Japan. So
Okay,
although it's
well,
not the original Japanese, it is set in Japan. So
yeah, that is next week. So tune in if you. I suspect I will be of the not negative opinion, but I think it will have scared me, and I think I'll still be dreaming about it the next time we talk about it.
I don't know. You said you thought the descent would scare you, and you were really
Well,
brave with the
I
descent.
oh, thanks, man. I think that's because I'd seen it as like it's been heralded as quite scary, on
Okay.
online. So I think But yeah, no, I think we're out, like you said, we're out of the creature features. We're into paranormal. We're into the things that I think will scare me more. So
Okay.
we'll see. But I'm still gonna watch it in the light. I'm still gonna watch it with Alex with the curtains open. Although if it's a dark film, which they all tend to be, I'll have to close the curtains. But then I'll get to open the curtains and it'll still be light. So
Lovely.
thank you for agreeing to do this horror film series before the clocks change. That's all I have to say.
Well, we're on a countdown now because it won't be long because it's been getting darker and darker every night. Yeah, I walked home last night at 8 o'clock and it was really dark. So I hate this time of year for that.
Oh no, but then
yes.
we move into Halloween and Christmas. But yeah, anyway. Yeah,
But
so
yeah.
next week is the 2004 Grudge. Liv can't wait. Amy can't wait, I'm sure. We hope to see you next week. Hope you enjoyed this, where we just basically bashed a book for the last hour and a bit. Podcast page turners, gmail.com if you want to email us. We are page turners pod at TikTok and Instagram. Come and see our Patreon. We do have more content to go on there, so there's at least three things going on there in the next week. I'd say I'm pledging it live on the podcast, so it's happening, and a little bit of an extra smidge of the Descent as well that we've got for there. But yeah, also, what else do we have to say?
Stay spooky.
Stay spooky.
Bye.